Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 201. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Self-motivated mother of two is on a mission to ensure the safety of every child throughout the transportation process. Our next guest is the founder of KYKS. Welcome, Tabatha Barron.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
I am perfect. You know, I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the blanks and share with them what you'd like them to know about you and your business?
Oh, okay, cool. That would be great. I actually started the business because my niece was put on the wrong school bus twice in the same school year as a 5-year-old. So if you can imagine being told as a 5-year-old that your voice doesn't matter and we're just going to place you on this bus anyway. So even after she had told him they put her on that bus anyway and dropped her off 5 miles away from where she was supposed to be. So my point is that with all of that being said, I took my 15 years worth of engineering experience and I took my troubleshooting skills and turned it into a platform that would be able to support bus drivers, school administrators, and parents.
Can you share exactly how that process works? If I'm a parent and I want to use your platform, walk me through that process.
Okay, so for the platform, for the parents, we're getting ready to roll out a parent app that's going to allow them to see have a little bit more information or insight in the dismissal of each one of their students, each one of their children. But ultimately, if they want their school to use our platform and program, they just need to contact us, Keeping Your Kids Safe, and then give us the referral for what school they want us to go into. And then we actually go and have a conversation with the principals and our superintendents, whomever's going to be in charge of making that decision, and then showing them the product and allowing them to possibly do a demo to determine whether or not it's a good fit for their school.
Tabatha, in the midst of COVID-19, how has your business had to pivot?
Unfortunately for our business, there wasn't a whole lot of room for us to pivot. We're just a little bit more on a pause to determine where the schools are going to be. So at the end of the day, we all understand that 50 million children have to be educated every year, but it depends on how they're going to do it, whether it's virtual or on-site. There's a lot of students that have to have on-site learning, so they're eventually going to have to return at some given point in time. So we're just here waiting for them to return to figure out how we're going to be able to best support them.
So with your platform, is it nationwide or is it specific to a region?
No, it can be used nationwide. Right now we're currently in Texas and actually in talks with Pennsylvania and South Carolina. But overall, we can take this across the United States and even globally, because the problem is not just a U.S. problem. It is a global issue. It's just that we live here, and so this is where we should start.
What can we do right now, Tabatha, to support your business?
I'm actually looking to get in contact with parent groups or parents in general. So because ultimately parents control, it's our tax dollars that actually are supporting the schools. And so if we have more parents that are more interested, I think, in having a product that doesn't track their children, but allows them to be dismissed properly or picked up and them understand the process and the path in which that child is moving, I think that it would actually help to support the schools. So parents that are willing, who have had this issue in the past, we're looking for them, but we're also looking for other parents who are all about a proactive viewpoint on how dismissals are done. I like to say that I have 2 children, right? But they're young adults. And I have 2 children, but the principals have like 900. So if you can imagine what it's like when we go and I have my children and I went to pick up my brother's 4 children, that's 6 children. And then it becomes a frenzy, right? So for the principals, you have to think of it in those terms as well, is that they may have their number of children that they go home with. Those are theirs. But when they're in school, they have 900 children that they have to manage and monitor. So the point is that parents, as a parent, we have our 2, but that principal has 900. So we have to have the parents help support that parent that's supporting 900 children. So that's what I'm looking for, parents and principals.
Tell us what advice you wish you had followed.
Oh, that is a really good question. So to listen to my own voice. So early on, I think that a lot of people believe that there's one way to get to the goal. And unfortunately, that's not the case. But because their voice seems to be a voice of reason and logic, I was following them in their path. And it wasn't a path that was suitable for what I was trying to accomplish. So I think the one piece of advice I did receive from someone who wasn't necessarily a business owner was to listen to my own voice, because I'm moved differently than another person is moved. And so if I'm listening to their voice, my product becomes their product, right? So I would prefer to make sure my voice is wrapped up in that, and then I follow what I understand it to be, and understand my focus, and make sure that I'm able to hit my milestones based on what I anticipate and not market fit.
Tabatha, take us through the process of you launching KYKS.
So when you're saying, how did I launch it? So I actually sat down and wrote everything out, really. I wrote everything out. And then one day, I remember I finally got to the point, because I feel like we only have one real good time to hit the market and be good. And so I went out, and once I finished it, I was at the last portion of it. And I never proclaimed that I knew exactly what each group that I was trying to support, I knew better what was best for them. So I never went into it that way. I built it so from my standpoint as a parent and the parents that were talking to me, and then I built it from all these other standpoints. But I was missing a portion of it, and that was for the schools. And so one day, I think it was like 90% done, and it was pretty much finished, but we were trying to work out the rest of the kinks. And so one day I got up the nerve, and I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to knock on 5 doors today. 5 doors. I went outside, and I was like, I got dressed, and I went outside, and I was like, okay, 5 doors. I'm just going to do 5 doors. And so I'm an introvert, and I have a really hard, I'm really strong when I know what I'm talking about, but I was going outside of my comfort zone by selling to anyone. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. So I knocked on the first 3 doors, and it was brutal. They were mean and nasty, and it was horrible. And I was like, okay, but you agreed to 5 doors. So I knocked on my last door, and the lady says, I like your product. This is really good. I want you to do me a favor, though. I need you to go and talk to the school, because the school actually just called us because they lost a kid, and they were struggling to find the child. And I was like, okay. So I went and I knocked on their door, and she said, come on in. We'll start next week. And that's how it first got launched, because I was willing to be uncomfortable for that minute so that I can at least finish out what I was started. And so we got into that school. We worked through the process. We worked through the rest of the kinks for that school year. And the following year, we went in, and it worked with barely a hiccup, barely, because nothing's ever 100%, barely a hiccup. We trained them and everything, and they haven't left us since. In the same school.
Tabatha, that's a great story. Let's switch gears for a moment. Talk about risk. Talk about your worst moment in business, and what was your takeaway?
I think, oh my gosh, my worst moment in business. Okay, was one of the people that was helping me in the development and so I was scheduled to go to a school. And I remember it was the Friday before Labor Day, or the Thursday before Labor Day. And about, I want to say 15, 30 minutes before I was scheduled to walk out the door, I always check and make sure everything is ready to go. And I checked, and the developer wiped out my whole entire database. He cleared everything. Everything was gone. So all the work I had done had all disappeared, and they didn't back it up. I remember that day because I felt so defeated. I thought, I just spent all these years putting all these pieces together, and I was like making it to the base, making it up to bat, and get ready to swing and it be good. And bam, it was gone. And I was like, and I remember that because after it was all done, I screamed and then I just started to cry. And I went and got in my bed fully clothed. And I was like, I'm done. I'm going to shut down the business. But what I learned from that was that, first of all, we always have to have a backup for things, but we also need to know that there's importance and redundancy in what we do. And I now know that when you are dealing with outsourcing of any type of business, anything about your business, you must have clear expectations, one, and that the other thing is that no one has access to kill everything. So just like they say that most of your revenue, like you shouldn't have 100% of your revenue coming from one source, you must diversify your revenue streams, because if that one goes away, your business dies. It's the same difference when you're building anything, software, hardware, whatever. You don't give them everything. You don't give them access to everything. You give them access to a portion of it and it's considered a branch. Because if you give them a branch, if it breaks, it doesn't break everything. So that was the lesson I took away from that. And from there, I've not encountered that again, but that was traumatic by far.
Tabatha, talk about capital. How did you raise the capital to fund your business?
Okay, so I use a lot of my own money. I did bootstrapping, period. It's all about a bootstrap. I had a friend that helped as well. So I had different friends that helped. So that was a good thing. But I had an angel investor that supported me. And that was the best thing I could have ever done, because that gave me validity in a different way. It wasn't because all the other VCs and angels and things like that, they were not interested in investing in a Black female. They're not interested in my product. They weren't. And the disparity that existed, I was unaware truly existed in that space. I thought that money would be okay. And as long as they understood what we were trying to do, that the money would show up. But that's not the case. Even to this day, I have yet to have an investment enough that will be able to push the company to a different level. So we just been bootstrapping and just finding our way through it.
Would you recommend that strategy for others?
Yes, I would recommend you bootstrap it. I think that one of the lessons that I learned in this journey was that if I had to do it all over again, I would have financially prepared for what was going to come up. But when you deal with technology companies, the problem is technology companies seem to be a money suck, but it's not forever. It's just until you get that one strike. The reason why is because technology, things are always changing. You always have to put so much in the front before you can sell it out into the back. And so because we front load with development and hardware and where is everything going to be stored and things like that, financially, I should have prepared a little bit better for being able to do this and know that it was going to be a multiple years, over 5 years, to get to a place where you're like, okay, this is a business and it's viable, right? I would suggest that prepare your money, put your all your information together, business accounts, personal accounts, make sure your credit stays together, because a lot of people don't tell you that your credit is important in the business journey. They don't tell you, a lot of us, we don't come from families who understand the financial aspect of life, let alone business. But your personal credit is important, business credit, building it early, and then putting accounts and money away, and then bootstrap the rest. And anybody who wants to participate or contribute, then accept that participation. And then the other thing, passive money is fine. Active money is better.
Define that for our audience.
So passive money for me is anybody who's willing to give you money, but they don't have the Rolodex or the way to support you in some aspect of your business, right? So, but active money, they say, I'm going to give you this money, but I'm also going to make a connection for you. And then now you have to go and sell your product. So I like more of the active money. I don't want them to come in and run the company for me. I want them to support me as I try to scale the business, as I work to scale the business. Because passive money, the money just goes into your account and then you have to go and figure out how to fill your gaps. But if you have the right person with you, then they can actually give you the money and then say, now go talk to, Mr. Black over there, because he's going to be the one that'll help you get to where you need to go.
Thank you for that clarification. So it's almost like if you have, with the active money, having like Shark Tank behind you.
Correct.
Thank you for that. There are so many successful businesses and brands, Tabatha. Tell us a brand or a business that is dominating that you admire and why.
Oh, that's dominating. So are these public companies or are these startups?
It's whatever you want it to be.
I admire the Clever Company. Okay, my friend Dom, I tell you, he's inspiration to me, and I think I am to him, but we are for different reasons, right? So the ClevTech is what he is now, clever.co, but he's a yummy box. So he's the one that is actually making contactless food pickup possible. And so what he has done is repurposed the lockers and wrapped them and made it possible for people to put in their order, pay for it, and then go pick it up without ever having to talk to a person. He just picks it up in a locker. And he's actually gaining a lot of momentum, especially now during a pandemic. The reason why I admire him is because when we first met and we first started, like we locked arms at that point, he was going through something very similar that I was going through, but I had a different perspective on it than he did. So we would go into these rooms where there was a lot of business owners in there, or a lot of people who were calling themselves mentors, quote unquote. So they would take us in these rooms and they would pretty much beat us up. You need to do this. You need to change this. You need to be this. You need to be all these things to all these different people. And no, we're not going to give you any money. So we would walk out of those rooms like feeling extremely abused. Well, one day I ran across, like, we were in the same building at the same time, just so happened that week. And he was like, I just came out of that room and man, I have all of these things. I don't know how I'm going to make it through this. And I was like, what I want you to do for me is that I want you to put aside everything that they're asking for now. But I need you to build a list that says, in order for your product to be what you want it to be, I want you to make a list. And it's going to be your must-haves, what is absolutely necessary for your product to be what you want it to be. Your nice-to-haves, those things that will be considered upgrades. And the parking lot, those items that you will determine whether or not they're going to ever come on board. And I said, and I want you to go ahead and use the notes that you receive from them. And you're going to start plugging them into where you feel like they're going to be, where they should be for you, in order for your product, your voice to be heard. That's what I want you to do for me. And then tell me what you think. And it's because you have to stop you have to stop allowing people to groom you into their way, which is further away from you. And when he did that, it changed the trajectory of how he went and did business. And then he was able to see that they weren't adding value. They were stalling him in where he was trying to go. And I seen him grow so much in that, because he's not a tech guy. He's non-tech. So he uses me as a technical guide or help for him, but he's been able to do his marketing on his own, his website. He's been able to do so much on his own and just stay the course. And I admire that so much, because even when he thought all of this is gone, I don't know where I'm going to go. They say that this isn't viable. And all the naysayers were showing up on a regular basis. He's actually proven them wrong, because he got his first out-of-state customer about a month ago. And I was like, bravo, because look at where we started and how bad it seemed. And look at where he is now. And he's in a good place. And now is his time. This pandemic is going to allow him to grow his company in ways he did not anticipate when he started.
Thanks for that shout out. Tabatha, talk about your top 2 influencers and what lessons do they teach you?
Influencers. Okay, so I don't have, my mom is one, because it's about humility and it's about making sure that you take care of home first. There's a lot of things that our parents go through in order to get us to where we are today, in order for us to be okay and sane. And my mom has actually been a very good supporter of this, and she's a school bus driver as well. So she was able to help me understand what was needed for them. but she is actually, even when it gets really crazy for me, she just reminds me of why I'm doing it and that the goals and why we're taking care of that. And then who is the other one? I don't know. I look at a lot of the successful Black women who come before me, and there's a lot of them out there. A lot of people talk about Oprah and, Beyonce, all those different ones, but all of them had to go through a process that no one really talks about, but they were able to be successful. So even if I use Oprah as one of the examples, or Michelle Obama as one of the examples, they had to go through a lot of garbage in order to come out the shining diamond that they are today. And diamonds are created out of pressure. And how much pressure do Black women actually have, on a daily basis? And so I don't look at one over the other. I just look at us collectively as to what we've been able to accomplish and take a piece from all of those and say, Oprah was told that her hair wasn't the right hair and that she was too dark and things like that. But then she ended up being like one of the most watched talk shows, in US history, right? She had to defy the odds in order to get where she needed to go. And she was able to be successful. Michelle Obama, she had to go through a lot of different things in her life as well. But the thing that struck me about her was the fact that she's a lawyer by trade, but she doesn't like the law. She doesn't practice the law, but she's found other things that are part of her passion projects that allow her to be successful and be seen as successful in our eyes. So all of those women are forging ahead regardless of all the naysayers. So I say, why not? Why not me? Why not be another example? Maybe I'll end up being $1 billion company one day, but even if I'm not, what am I leaving in my wake that allows for someone else to pick up the rear, So, and I'm looking at those ladies as doing the same thing. So collectively, Black women have been able to forge ahead and make it possible for us to dream bigger than what our parents and our grandparents allowed us to do.
Tabatha, talk about your legacy. When it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as kind. I want to be remembered as an advocate for those who could not advocate for themselves. The one thing for me is that one of my children is special needs. And even though he may not want to accept that as part of who he is and the great part of who he is, the point is that there was a time in which he really needed somebody to advocate for him. And there's a lot of children out here and a lot of aging population out there who need to have advocates in their corners. And so what I would like to say in the middle, so the beginning and the end, always has a date, but everything in between needs to be impactful enough that I'm an advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves. If we remember nothing else about Tabatha, I think that's the one thing that I want to make sure that's very clear.
Tabatha, you're an engineer by trade or career. Mm-hmm. Talk about the collision or the marriage of how did you get from an engineer to where you are today?
So corporate America is not kind to anybody who is different, period. Anybody who says that it's not true, they are not being truthful to themselves, because there's definitely a difference. There's definitely a problem in corporate America when it comes to anyone that is not part of the preferred group, right? When I found that we're all disposable to companies, but when it's damaging to who you are as a person, you have to find another way out. And if the only way out is to do a lateral move to another corporate company who you will then find starts to damage who you are as a person, then we probably have to think about doing something different. Going from being an employee to being an entrepreneur was not an easy one. It was definitely a mindset thing that I had to fix. I had to come away from turning to look and say, is this the direction you want to go to? Versus, Tabatha, you have to make the decision because this decision is your decision, not the decision of anyone else's. So when I made this shift for myself to say that I am enough, I can do this, I am responsible, I do have enough knowledge to get this started, and all those other things that went into changing my mindset, then I figured out that I was never really truly employable to begin with because I wasn't willing to just go for anything, right? And so that is the one thing for me, making that transition. So I took my engineering skills and everything that I had learned over those 15 years of being in the industry. And I just said I was enough to build my own, that I didn't need the validation from corporate America to say that I could do it. And then I just started pouring into. So if I can pour 40 hours and 60 hours into someone else's dream, I can pour 40 and 60 hours into my own dream. And that's how I was able to make that shift.
Tabitha, what problem exists in the world today that you'd like to solve?
Oh my gosh, there's so many, right? But I think I still want to stick with the children and the aging population. So both groups, okay, I look at the children as being our future. I look at the aging population as being our history. And both groups are steadily ignored by everyone, it seems like. So if I could actually help, I'm giving the voice to the children now. That's what I want to do. I need to make sure that we as adults pay attention to the fact that as a child, that these children have a voice, and we should listen, even if we don't necessarily agree, because they can be really abrasive, but you don't have to agree to respect their voice, right? And that's the one thing. But then I also want to deal with the aging population, because I think it's unfortunate that so many of them are so lonely, or they're just being, and I'm probably going to be one of them because my kids are older and we have a tendency to forget about our families, but I just want to be able to support them and help as far as medical is concerned, as far as being able to have a community. So if there's one thing I want to really, really work on, I want to be able to build a community that is inclusive of the young and the old coming together to help us understand how we're supposed to navigate these choppy waters. I love the background because I said the choppy waters, of life, I think. There's a few, I don't know, immigration is another one. Education is one too. The fact that so many people, even during the pandemic, there's so many children that were not educated during the pandemic because they didn't have access to the technology that would be able to support them. I think that's a big one. So I think it was more children's rights.
Tabitha, what are you most grateful for right now in your life?
I am most grateful for, there's a lot. I'm most grateful for my family, because without my family, I would not have stepped out on faith and love, period. The point is that without my mom, I wouldn't have jumped out there. I wouldn't have done it. I watched her be upset, my niece. She's very calm, but there's, that your parent has this tone that when they're struggling with something, and they're trying to keep everything together. And I could tell that there was a shift that happened after they lost her for the second time. And I have to say that with all of these different people in my life, it forces me and it motivates me to be better and to do things that I would not have normally done on my own. So that's why I say I'm most grateful for my family, because if I get really, really down or really have a hard time, I look at them and realize that this is the reason why. This is the reason why I want to make them proud. And so I'm very, very grateful that they exist. I'm very grateful for the support and sometimes the lack of support that they've given. And because it helps me to be better as a human being.
What book would you recommend and why?
What book would I recommend? That's a good one. What book? Probably the Becoming one for Michelle Obama. I think because it shows a story. It gives a lot of insight as to what someone else's story, how she was able to overcome, or how she was able to navigate waters in which who would have thought, who would have thought that we were going to have that type of first lady? Normally our community is looking at possibly that have been a totally different scenario, right? But she is graceful, she is kind, she is respectful, she is doing. She is actually showing us what a model looks like, what a model, leader looks like without being a leader. So that's why I would choose her book, because I look at her and say, she says, take the high road. And there's true examples of her taking the high road because of their journey and how they had to deal with different things. especially with making the transition from one president to another. If you look at the fact that to a certain degree, people's words have power, and the fact that her family possibly is in danger because of someone's words, and how she never broke character to be disrespectful to someone who was disrespectful to her and her family, that screams like so much strength and leadership in that.
What was that aha moment that you knew that KYKS was going to be successful?
I don't know that I had that one yet. I knew it was going to be successful when the principal, my very first principal said, I walked in and I remembered, I was like, oh my gosh, I was so stressed out because it just wasn't working the way I wanted, the way I envisioned it. And I'll never forget. I tell you, she walked up and I was sitting in the office and I was waiting and my stomach is hurting. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're about to be booted out of this school because good Lord, we didn't do it right. And I was like, well, I know that we ran into some issues. And she said, nope, KYKS has kinks. We'll work them out. I'll see you next week. And that was the moment in which I realized that the product worked and that it will work as long as as long as I meet the right people, because I'm a firm believer currently now that you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. So regardless of what you say, your product will stand alone. And that was the moment in which I realized that this will be a great product.
What is your goal for the brand and your business KYKS?
Okay, so what's my vision? I want to be able to support be able to support at least 10 million elementary school children. Mind you, 35.6, I think, K through 8 go to school every year. So I just want to be able to support like a third of them for KYKS, because I think that safety should never be so costly that it's not affordable. But I want to be able to support them and know they are supported. And that's all about the brand. And the logo is intentional. The colors in the logo is very intentional. And I'll tell you, the story was I was sitting in a school office, and a little boy who's special needs, I don't know exactly what was going on. And he walked up to me, and I had my gear on. So he walked up to me and he spelled out the acronym KYKS, KYKS. And he wasn't in the program. So that told me that is what I want. The logo is intentional for that reason. That let me know that I was accepted in a child's world. And I get all kinds of children that know exactly who I am and know the brand and the product, and they're proud to carry the cards. So that is what I would like to have. That's what I see my vision, to have KYKS cards like over 10 million students across the United States.
Tabatha, how do you feel about who you have become?
Well, that's great. I'm a work in progress, just like all of us. But for me, I think I'm glad that I was able to do this. I've always known I wanted my own business, but I'm proud of the fact that I've actually been able to use that tenacity for something that is my own, something that means something. For me, I used to work at this company and they used to yell at me all the time. I was like, and I'd said, I just don't like it when you yell at me. This is just not a professional thing, and I think it's dumb. And I was like, because no one's going to die in this. No one's going to die from not having their system repaired. Nobody's going to die from us not testing this properly. Now, if I want to be yelled at, and I would accept being yelled at when it's someone's life in jeopardy, that's when you can yell at me. When what I'm doing can possibly cost somebody their life. The reason why I say that is because that is what KYKS is about. So I'm proud that I've been able to stand up for other people, and know that if I'm being yelled at because I made a mistake, it's because it can potentially cost somebody their life. And that's the most important thing for me. And that's what I'm most proud of for myself, is that I've been able to stand in that and say that as long as I'm saving a life, I'm not helping to lose a life.
Tabatha, if someone wrote an autobiography about you, what would the title be?
I think my mom has this one, right? She doesn't know how to stop. That's what it was. My mom would say, you just don't know how to stop. And I was like, I guess not. I'll try harder next time.
How did you decide the name of your business, KYKS?
Oh, so the name of the company is Keeping Your Kids Safe, but the name for the product is KYKS, right? And the reason why, because the whole entire thing is that keeping your kids safe is so, so important. So the changing of the guards happens when the parent drops a child off at the school, or when the parent drops a child off at the bus stop for them to be taken to school. So when you change the guards, the anticipation or expectation is that that child is in a safe environment to continue to move. But when they're misplaced and lost, that is not keeping a child safe. That's putting them directly in harm's way. So when I was sitting there trying to figure out what this is going to be and what message I wanted to send, it was all in the title, Keeping Your Kids Safe. You know, my friend says, if you parent one, you parent them all. So I have two, and I'm trying my best to keep my kids safe, but I need to keep your kids safe too, because this is our community. So when I was creating the company, I was like, let me see. I want to make it perfectly clear because I don't want it to be that blue eraser over there. And people are like, well, what does blue eraser exactly do? I wanted it to be, they knew exactly what we were doing by the name of the company, which is Keeping Your Kids Safe. And I thought it was really important.
Tabatha, let's step back a moment. You talked about venture capitalists and underrepresenting of African American women in that space. What do you see as a solution for capitalization and getting money into the hands of more Black women entrepreneurs?
This is a great question because me and my friends keep talking about this. I believe that we should come together as a collective and then manage our financial VCs. I don't think that we should allow mainstream America to dictate our worth and what we need in order to be successful. I think as collectively, we need to come together and make a decision to help as many as we can. But we should not do it in silos, because I think that's what a lot is happening. Because a lot of people are going to say, well, there are a lot of companies out there that are VCs that are helping women or helping minorities and things like that. But the problem with that is that there's not enough of them. There are so many firms out there that they are set up just to say no. But we can support one another in a way that no one else can, because we understand what the pitfalls are coming. But I also want to say that inside this collective, do not adopt the same bad behaviors of the normal VCs. That's not productive. If I had to do it, I would pull the collective together and we would create a set of rules and processes that would assist and help those, even if they're not money ready, but be able to help them to understand what is it going to take for them to be money ready, ready to receive the revenue or ready to receive the investment. But I would definitely want to say we just need to collectively get together and stop looking towards other people to help support us.
Tabatha, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
Oh, okay. So what question would I have asked myself? I would have asked, I think it's, okay, how many children have been saved? How many children have been saved by using KYKS in the schools today? The answer is we identify over 2 per school that we're in every single day. So if we do 2 times 170, that's a lot of kids that we've helped save. So the point is that that's the question that I would ask. How many students have you saved today, up to date? And I would tell you that it's been over 2 per school, every school that we're in. We've identified children who were going in the wrong direction. We've identified children that were being placed on the wrong school bus. We've identified where even the parents have assisted in that. So that is probably, that's a great one. I like it.
Tabatha, we've come to the part of our interview. It's called Fun Facts Lightning Round. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Fun Facts Lightning Round?
All right, let's go.
Thank you. What movie did you see?
Last movie I don't know. I can't remember the name. Jeez, my knees. I can't remember the name. Oh no, it was Grace. It was something about it was about Grace. Yep.
You relax doing what?
Watching movies.
Work out or hit the couch?
No, neither.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Oh, right now I think is John Legend.
Your favorite dance song?
Oh man, Just Fine by Mary J.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
I think it's cheese toast.
Your favorite month?
All of them.
Your first job?
Oi, paper route.
Thank you so much for joining us, Tabatha, on Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast. Before we let you go, why don't you share with our audience the best way that they could reach you, and give them all your social media handles.
Okay, so my name again is Tabatha Barron. I can be reached at info@KYKSFIRST.com and phone number 832-405-8036. My social media handles are at KYKSFIRST for Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All the same.
Thank you, Tabatha. That's a wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.